Hello and welcome to Gamepass Gaming Sunday podcast. I am your host Flap, and as ever, we've got a fun, full-packed show tonight, full of great topics. Really excited for tonight's show. There's been some sort of developments this week, and there's some rumours that we can chew the fat on. So, really looking forward to getting into tonight's topics. But before we start with any of that, let's introduce the panel as normal. And first up, as ever, Puxley. How are you?
Yes, hello everybody. I'm not too bad, thank you. It's been a good weekend actually. A lot of gaming. I was on the Indie Gamer podcast yesterday, or Indie Games podcast yesterday evening. That was good fun. And yeah, I'm ready to jump back into the GPG show.
Excellent. Well, we've got plenty to talk about tonight. Now, to be honest, the strange thing about hosting a show on a Sunday like this is as the week goes on, there's obviously topics that come out, and there's quite a few podcasts out there that have already probably discussed a lot of these topics, and that's kind of fair enough. So by the time it kind of comes to us on Sunday, sometimes the topics are a little saturated, but this week's just kept on giving actually, and we've got so much stuff that we can try and get through. So we'll try and get it all done in the 2 hours that we tend to try and allot ourselves. But next up. Back to the show for the second time, I believe. We've got the Rain in the house. Rain, how you doing, my friend?
Flap, GPG, it is I, and I am him, the one and only Still Rain. Again, I want to thank you guys for welcoming the Rain back to the GPG kingdom. Excuse me, words are getting twisted. The excitement is there. Look, we got some great topics for you tonight. Again, like Flap was saying, I mean, there's been some run-of-the-mill topics. Everybody's kind of talked about a little bit of everything, but I feel like we're going to come from a different angle, as I like to say, and just put a little bit of extra flavor on it, and just hopefully end your week off right?
Absolutely, yeah, and that's the thing, because like you say, we like to try and tackle these sort of topics from a slightly different angle, perhaps, and put things out there that people may not have discussed and stuff in the past. So yeah, it's always great to come at these at a slightly different angle, and helping us do that. As always, regular to the show and to the panel. Like to welcome SX2 Scott. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you very much, Flap. To be perfectly honest, I don't know how I'll follow up Steel Rain's introduction. It's a tough act to follow, isn't it? So, looking forward to the show. I was actually on Steel Rain's first show, if I remember correctly, as well.
Yes, you were.
Fantastic.
Good to have you back, mate. And
here's a little test for you. Here's a little quiz for either of you. What gameplay footage was I playing when we did that last show? Can you remember?
You were playing Halo 1, weren't you?
Yes. Well done.
Good, man. I had no idea.
Oh yeah, I remember. I'm telling you, I love you. What you guys do. I love the energy that you guys bring. And again, SX2, I sharing another panel with you, man. I feel like we're gonna have a good time tonight. Well,
yeah, definitely. Look forward to it.
The reason I asked that is because I actually nearly put some more Halo footage up today, because obviously as Gamepass Gaming, we have a tournament coming up amongst many other podcasters. In fact, I might just try and download that and flash it back up on the screen if we can, who it is we've got in the tournament. So I will quickly go off and find that perhaps while Puxley's talking. But
that'd be nice.
Yeah. So myself, Puxley, SX2, and Luke Steele, we are in the team of 4. We will be representing Gamepass Gaming, and we've been getting some practice in. So I thought that we might flash some of that up on the screen today. But I don't know. I think perhaps we might need a little bit more practice before I feel confident sticking that up on the screen, if I'm completely honest.
For sure.
I must try and find the lineup of who's got who. But I'll do that in a sec. So, without any further ado, let's get straight into topic number 1, if we can. I'm not quite excited for this one because it came out of sort of left field a little bit. Very strange. It actually came out of a Kotaku interview with Phil Harrison. Mm-hmm. And he was obviously interviewed and was questioned around, the closure of the Google Stadia first-party studios, and he'd actually pointed out that, Microsoft's acquisition of Bethesda was one of the sort of underlying causes, and that really took me by surprise, because I was really surprised that he'd kind of come out and pointed the finger at someone specific, or even a specific acquisition like that. And once a little more detail had come out, the employees were told 1 week before that the studios were making great progress on exclusives and doing really well, and a week later the email went round that actually, sadly, they were closing the studios. And it was a really strange situation. And, Phil Harrison later admitted that, the email was misleading and a mistake. But so I'll come to you first, if you don't mind, Rain. Let's go with this. How do you treat Phil Harrison's response to this? Do you think that actually had anything, Microsoft's acquisition of Bethesda or ZeniMax actually had anything to do with them closing the studios, or was it just down to bad management, do you think?
Honestly, I would have to say it would have to be bad management, because honestly, man, this is like his third time, right? You've had your third chance up the bat to really flesh out the market and really hit it off, and you've fallen again. You were not able to deliver. I personally don't think that Google took it seriously enough. I mean, we've seen it time and time again where Google does things and they'll drop it. As part of what they do right now, Google's good for a search engine. I haven't found much else outside of that. Of course, as we move into Android and Linux and stuff like that, they've definitely push the market on those things, but other than that, they haven't taken gaming seriously enough. You can't create teams or start developing games and expect for a game to be out in a year. You're gonna just spend big boy money to really make those kinds of moves happen. You see what Microsoft is spending the $7.5 billion. Is Google willing to spend that kind of money? That's kind of the question that I always come up to, and I don't think they are, not yet. And we see that with this. They said, no, we're just going to pull it back in third. We're going to do the third party thing. Can they be successful doing it? Maybe, but I still don't. How do you gain back the trust of your fellow business partners when you don't even have faith in your brand? It's kind of like, and then you got to look over at Amazon Luna and say, hey, well, you can tell that Amazon's kind of working on it. They got a team. They're working on a game. They're trying things. They're invested, and we're going to see how it goes. Right now, the Microsoft buying ZeniMax, sure, you could say it has a part to play in that. Microsoft is just exclusified a huge genre of games, these Western RPGs that a ton of people love. How can you compete against that? Especially if you're new competition. People look over to Sony and say, oh, look, we want Microsoft to be that, but you still have to understand that Sony still has a generation, almost 2 generations ahead of Xbox. And we're expecting the same quality of titles, you know what I mean? And even now we've seen that it took till 2013, 2018 now to the buying of ZeniMax that Microsoft finally has proven to the people that Microsoft takes it seriously. So again, when you look at Google, you look at what Stadia was doing, they promised a lot. They didn't deliver day one. That's a fault. You're 3 years in it now. You haven't shown anything, whereas Xbox and what they have brought is already establishing, as we see in Korea and we see in Japan. The people are loving it, and it's only going to get better as technology evolves, as the internet evolves, as networking evolves. Hey, it kind of is what it is. I think they're just trying to throw some smoke out there, playing the blame game,
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just found it strange, and perhaps I don't know if it's anything to do with Phil's ties with Xbox. Obviously, he's worked for Sony and Xbox. I think his previous employment was Xbox, wasn't it?
Yes.
Actually, I don't know what he did between Xbox and going to Google. Actually, I'm a little bit vague on that part of his history. So if anyone in the chat is aware of what he did between those times, I'm not overly sure myself. Scott, what did you make of this comment? I found it very peculiar, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a little bizarre. And actually, I'd just like to touch on something that Steele just mentioned there, which is about Google taking gaming seriously. And I'd have to agree. They don't appear to have taken it seriously. I mean,
does bagging Shannon Studstill and Jade Raymond not mean that they're taking it seriously? I mean, they're big names in the industry. I mean, I know Phil probably had connections to them via Sony and Ubisoft, and so is that not taking it seriously? Do you think?
I think the hires, at least, especially in Jade Raymond's case that you mentioned in particular, were astute hires. But I think when I talk about them not taking it seriously, they didn't even give their first party development teams was it less than 2 years? Was it about 18 months, if that they had? So when I talk about whether they've taken it serious or not, did they do the research to truly understand what it takes to develop a game and the resources, the time it takes, especially starting from scratch? And
who do you mean by they, though? Because you said,
Google in general are the team behind Stadia, and I guess in particular Phil Harrison, which is a little bit bizarre because Phil Harrison, despite his I guess numerous failures in the industry, he must at least have a little bit of an idea. That games take 3 to 5 years minimum really to develop, and especially if you start from scratch. You look at Microsoft have obviously started up the initiative from scratch, and we're not going to see that game for a couple of years yet. They were developing in 2018, but I would actually like ask, I guess, everyone on the panel a question. Steele mentioned, did they just not have the money? I wonder what it was that stopped Google from actually buying Bethesda in the first place. Were they simply outbid by Microsoft? I mean, obviously $7.5 billion is a hell of a lot of money, but for a company like Google or Microsoft, it's not that much. So whether outbid, or is there an element of where Bethesda simply weren't interested in doing a deal with Google? And obviously Bethesda and Microsoft have sort of a rich history together, where they're just more interested in becoming part of Microsoft's family rather than Google's. But I'd have to agree with Steele, if I'm being perfectly honest. I think it's just a little bit of smokescreen. There's two outcomes here. The first one is they're lying, in which case Phil Harrison, that's not a good look. Or secondly, they genuinely put all of their eggs in the Bethesda basket before they even secured the deal. And either one of those outcomes to this is not a good look, and shows Google's lack of commitment to gaming. If you pinned all of your hopes on one acquisition, and after that you decided, right, we're not going to do first party stuff because of that, then what was the point in even trying in the first place?
Exactly.
So yeah, I guess that's sort of my view. But I would be curious to know from the chat as well. Where Google outbid, or do you think maybe Bethesda weren't really interested when it came to it?
And to kind of answer Flap's question, to answer Flap's question, he was the head of Sony Network of Game Studios. I believe that was for the PlayStation 3. Didn't do well. We know how that went. No. He was a senior member of Microsoft Xbox team for the Xbox One.
I think he was vice president.
We know how that go. Yes, exactly. And then we know how that went. And then now Stadia.
Okay.
So it's kind of like, and that's why I was saying, it's like this is the third time I feel like where maybe his expectation wasn't realistic, of what needed to happen, or maybe Google just didn't have enough faith. Because again, we've seen from previous ventures from Google that they will pull out if they feel like they're not going to make a return on it immediately. They haven't really worked that into a way where they're just going to let something live, kind of like how Xbox has had. But the thing that Xbox has that's different, the thing that Sony would have that is different, is that there's a backlog already. There's already games there. And like Plexley was saying, if it's going to be excuse me, goodness. If you were putting all your eggs in that Bethesda basket, then yeah, you failed. That 7.5 put you to sleep, and you weren't serious enough to say, oh, maybe 8.
So I'm not. I don't think Stadia were probably after Bethesda. I don't think. I mean, perhaps it was something they looked at. I'm not a bit like you said, Scott. I think perhaps it was more Bethesda wouldn't want anything to do with Stadia until it's a proven platform, I guess. But Puxley, what was your take on this strange thing? And to be honest, it wasn't just the Microsoft acquisition of Bethesda that was blamed. There's things like COVID as well. But it was just a very strange situation to be in, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of mirror both Steele and SX2's comments already, but this reminds me of when we had a chat about this a couple of weeks ago regarding like both Google and Amazon Luna. And it reminds me of the gamesindustry.biz article I read about how, both of the, I'm not going to bring Amazon to the mix, but both Amazon and Google follow a very data-centric approach when it comes to development, whereas the gaming sphere, I think game development is in a very interesting position in the world of software development, because it's not just writing code and you're making pixels move on a screen. You've got all sorts of technical art involved, general creative side of things, marketing. There's all sorts of. It's not just writing code and then job done by a team of 50 or whatever. You might have like 50 coders on a team working on different parts of it, and you've obviously got people working on like UI, and you've got artists involved, and it's this complete iterative process where these big companies, corporate businesses like Google that that are very data driven. And their tool sets are very streamlined as well. Like when you're making things for the web, for example, as Google's domain is web development, right? And web services. I mean, there are frameworks and tools which exist which streamline that whole process. And you don't need these big teams of, as I say, artists, all this kind of thing. A lot of the web tools are obviously, you have a set of requirements for a tool that you wish to make. You code it up, you get some art assets made by your UI team, and then you throw it into this one big framework and tool, and it's done for you. But game development is not like that at all. I say it takes, as SX2 was saying, this takes years to make a final product, and it takes millions of dollars or whatever to get these products out the window.
But if you're Google, don't once you've employed Phil Harrison, don't you sit back and then think, well, he's going to get it sorted out. He's been in the industry God knows how long. He's worked for Sony, he's worked for Microsoft. He's been around. This is a guy that knows how to do things, what he's doing, and perhaps that's just not the case.
It could well be that, or it could be someone even higher up, probably suggesting that, why are we going to spend all this money? It shouldn't cost this much. And maybe it's the higher-ups which might have pushed things like Stadia in the first place, which may well have misunderstood actually how much is required to make a game, one that you're going to try and sell. I mean, this kind of mirrors the whole Amazon argument of, they want every one of their Amazon games to be a billion-dollar franchise. Like, you don't just wish for that, hire a talent, and then expect that to happen. You have to, the term find the fun is the fundamental part of making a game. You can't. Making games is not a data-driven process in that just following data alone makes a great game. Like, no, you have to prototype. You have to completely iterate over prototypes. You have to find out what is fun to play and what, as players, people will be willing to pay for to play. That's the other big question as well. And I get a feeling that Google may well mirror Amazon in their approach that, well, everyone's playing Call of Duty at the moment, or everyone's playing League of Legends at the moment. Let's just make clones of these games, but put our spin on it. And then, actually, out of nowhere, the market has changed once again, as it always does. And now this other game is, Fortnite, for example, is now the hottest thing on the scene, or Rocket League, or whatever else the new thing is. It's changing all the time. And I'm kind of wondering if maybe Google can't keep up with this, because the data is changing all the time. Maybe their systematic approach to this is just not adequate for a game development environment.
Yeah, no, completely agree. And to be honest, Luke Steele's just put something interesting in the chat, saying I suspect what Phil was hinting at is simply that Google were not prepared to make the type of significant investment into first parties as others have. And that's fine. And perhaps I'll come to you with this, Scott. That's fine. So what is their plan? Does that mean Stadia is now dead? Or are they just going to, what's the USP for Stadia? I can't see any hook to actually buy into the Stadia system, and if I can't see that, I suspect others do as well. So is this the beginning of the end? Without significant and unique first party titles, and particularly when you've got Amazon chasing at their heels and Microsoft obviously got the xCloud already up and running, what's the point of Stadia at this point?
I think ultimately the answer is there isn't. There isn't much point. I think that's maybe part of the problem that Google have gotten, is obviously one of the reasons that they made this decision. Obviously, we don't have any figures to my knowledge, or at least I couldn't find any, but I do wonder how well is it doing? How many Stadia Pro subscribers are they currently getting? What game sales like on there? Now, personally, just from my perspective, I was interested in Stadia mainly just from a technology standpoint. I've tried most of the streaming services that are available, and personally, I think Google Stadia was, from a technology standpoint, the best performing out the ones that I've tried. I've tried xCloud, I've tried GeForce Now, and PlayStation Now as well. And from a technology standpoint, it was probably the best experience. But ultimately, the side that let them down was the business model around how you actually acquire games. And they were asking people to essentially rebuy games because none of the games were exclusive to the platform, bar maybe, I think, one sort of smaller indie title, which with sort of, I guess, I don't want to have any sort of disrespect towards independent game development, but obviously that isn't what's going to bring the subscribers in. I think ultimately it's just a case of, yeah, it's more or less dead at this point, but I'd probably argue it was more or less dead on arrival in my opinion, because the business model, from my perspective, was wrong from the beginning. I think what Stadia will become now is simply a technology in the same way, you know, Amazon has AWS, Amazon Web Services, that is used by millions of companies around the globe, and generally people won't really know too much about it, but as a sort of a technology that's running in the background, it's everywhere. I suspect Stadia will prove to be something similar for maybe other game developers. You've got companies out there like Ubisoft, EA, Activision, big publishers who are maybe looking to get into that space without maybe partnering with Microsoft or Sony, and maybe they'll try to use their technology for their own services. I think that's the way it'll go. If I was to predict, I think by the end of this year or maybe some point next year, at least within the next 18 months, I think sort of as a platform for consumers to use, I don't think Stadia will be around much longer than that at all.
Wow. I mean, imagine the people that bought the Founders Edition and have bought games on the service and stuff. I mean, wow.
See, and that's what makes it the worst. And that's why I say, I mean, how do you expect for your fellow companions to want to even join your ventures anymore if you're just willing to drop the ball? I mean, you just got to look at the situation.
How long do you give Stadia then, Rain?
I mean, unless Google makes a heavy investment, I can only give it a couple more years.
So where do you think this leaves Amazon and Luna then? Like, I mean, we did discuss this last week actually, but do you think that leaves them rubbing their hands, thinking, "Brilliant, you know, there's one huge player gone in the market," or do you think they're thinking, "Oh, blummy, you know, one giant's fallen"?
It's one of those things. I don't think Amazon's necessarily worried about it either, because Amazon's taking their time. Amazon has a subscription base. They just don't have enough in their service to warrant for anyone to get it. At the moment, I feel, you know, I mean, that's just my personal take on that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think Pucks is right as well. I think perhaps, you know, it's easy to blame Phil Harrison for lots of things. And, you know, if we're going to blame him for anything, let's blame him for that awful email he sent a week before. Kind of.
See, and I wouldn't blame him, though. I would just say, I personally just think it's Google. I mean, the fact that he's at the forefront of it just makes it worse.
Exactly. I mean, that's what I was kind of coming to, really. He's kind of at the sharp end, isn't he? But perhaps, like you say, perhaps he just couldn't keep the people above him at bay with actually how this industry bloody works and what, you know, their expectations and things like that. But
exactly.
Yeah, Pucks, what's going on in the chat at the moment?
Oh yeah, a lot of people kind of agreeing what the panel was saying from what I've seen so far. I've got two saved comments at the moment. One of them from Wakanda Xbox News Today, who says, to be honest, if you look close at the business model of Stadia, it's not good for a number of reasons. Plus, to sign up for all the content, it can work out costly, and people will not do that.
No, absolutely.
And I think that's why Luna is probably in a better position than Google, more or less from day one, because of the business model that they have attributed to it. I can't comment on Luna personally. I've not tried it. I think it's actually limited to the US still at the moment. But you know, they've got a subscription that's maybe something up to $10 a month, but you get a selection of games similar to Gamepass, so you're not going to have to go and rebuy it. And then they've also got that essentially it's kind of like add-ons. They've got a Ubisoft add-on essentially where you can get Ubisoft games day and date, similar to Ubisoft's own subscription platform that they've got. And I think just from a business model perspective, that's a far smarter way to go. And I think from that perspective, Amazon will have a little bit more success with Luna compared to Stadia. And at least Amazon have tried to release a game a little unsuccessfully. If I remember rightly, they had to sort of take it back. And
it went back into beta, didn't it? And then it got cancelled.
Yeah, that's been madness. But at least, you know, they've tried in some sense. But they do have the MMO that I think is due to release this year. So, you know, that's at least two game development projects that you can at least say that they did almost from start to finish and have attempted to release. So I think just that alone, albeit unsuccessful results so far shows a little bit more of a commitment to actual first-party game development, but then also the fact that they seem to have taken a smarter approach when it comes to the actual subscription service and the business model behind it. In my opinion, will mean Amazon have a little bit more success than Stadia. Whether that turns into something bigger or not's obviously another matter entirely, but I think at least it'll be a little bit more successful.
No, absolutely. And to be honest, Puxley, let's come back to yourself. I mean, this makes, like, Xbox Game Pass and xCloud look fantastic, doesn't it, in comparison?
Definitely.
It just shows you how ridiculously strong Microsoft's hand is right now on the games, both game streaming and game service platform.
100%. I do want to quickly just add on to what Scott was saying, actually, because at least when I had a go at kind of the Google Stadia, like 1 month trial, I know what SX2 was saying there about, with Amazon Luna, how they bundle in some games on their model, but I believe Google do the same thing as well. So when you sign up for their Pro model, they do have like a list of, like, oh, you're part of the Google Stadia subscription, you're going to get these games every once in a while, and you can claim them, which is great, all the while that you're paying. And equally,
all the while the server's alive.
And all the while the server's alive.
Yeah,
but
I think
equally,
it's similar to games with gold that Pogs, but sorry to interrupt, but at least when it launched, there was only Destiny 2 that was available for Pro subscribers, so you paid them £10 a month or whatever it was, and the only game you got as part of that £10 a month was Destiny 2, which obviously ended up being free to play anyway, so you only really got the expansions that came.
I know when I played it, I know when I tried it back in November, I think there was at least 20 titles that I claimed and had a go at, which was quite good. But I mean, I appreciate what you're saying though about releasing smaller, selection of games of your main subscription. But I don't know if I think the same way, and that I think Amazon will have much more success. I don't know. I feel like, if anything, Amazon are more behind than Google when it comes to this. I kind of find it strange why they're restricting it to testing in the US. But then I'm not sure if any of this is mainly just a global impact on the global outlook on streaming in general when it comes to gaming, because you need to have I know by official numbers, you don't need to have the fastest connection to do basic game streaming, but to have a really good performing streaming experience, you need to have a moderately decent connection speed. And I know there's a lot of parts in the US which have great connections, obviously, and equally loads that don't. The same applies in the UK. You've got areas which have fantastic connection speeds and loads that don't. But then I think there's a lot of countries in the world which primarily will not have a sufficient internet connection speed to handle it. So I'm not sure if both Google and Amazon in their entirety are maybe fighting a losing battle when it comes to this, or rather they need to wait an extremely long time for the rest of the world to try and catch up with their own infrastructures, if you get what I mean. But to now answer what you were saying, Flap, I completely agree that Microsoft is in a very good boat in the fact that they've got their own xCloud service. Because I think it's in a very similar game as both Google and Amazon. But the difference I find is that obviously Microsoft with xCloud, they're not betting on xCloud. It's just an extension of what already exists, and it's another option to choosing whether you want to buy, if you still would like to buy an Xbox One, if you don't want to go for the brand new stuff, or you can invest in a Series S or X, or you can play on PC and get it all together. So Microsoft in a very good foot to answer your question, but I think it's mainly because they've got about 4 other choices to enjoy the Xbox ecosystem compared to the competition of streaming, if that makes sense.
But I guess my point was, as a backdrop, when everyone saw Google were sort of entering into the game market and doing this sort of thing, it was all very interesting, and people were kind of, very intrigued to know how it was going to work. But like I say, it just shows you how strong Microsoft's hand are and how far advanced they are of pretty much everyone else at this point with this kind of technology, to be honest. And if, in my head, if Google can't do it, then it must be difficult. And I do appreciate there is lots of management issues around that, and perhaps their expectations far outweigh what it is they were able to deliver in the time frame. But like I say, it just shows you Microsoft are, they're pacing themselves, taking it slowly. They seem to have a clear vision of what to do and how to do it, which is what seemed to be lacking from the Google Stadia approach.
That's true. Just to add, though, I agree with what SX2 was saying in that. I've not tried ones like GeForce Now or some of the other, I'd say smaller ones, if that makes sense, or maybe lesser known ones. But out of the ones I have tried, my Google Stadia experience was far better than the xCloud experience overall. Like, the experience is very well done. Like, it was almost seamless. I remember my first proper experience when I had the trial was trying to play Sniper Elite 4, which it's not the most fast-paced game like Call of Duty, but it gets relatively manic if you get spotted. A lot of running around in a big open world and stuff. And for me, the experience was absolutely flawless. When I first tried xCloud, I did have a few little teething problems and issues with it originally. So in terms of user experience, I think Google have definitely got the infrastructure in place, and I definitely agree that, again, as X2 was saying, that I can definitely see Google maybe, I don't know, outsourcing their technology perhaps, maybe licensing it out, or maybe turning it into part of their business model to use the technology rather than running their own service. So it'd be interesting to see where they do take it in the long term.
I'm really keen to see where it goes because, I don't know if they're just going to kill it off or how they're going to run the service down if they do. It's going to be a very interesting thing to sort of witness from the sidelines. I
suppose this is why people don't put all their eggs in Google's basket, though, because Google are very well known for hyping up new products and then out of nowhere just binning it off out of nowhere.
There's a Google graveyard, isn't there? There's a website dedicated to the Google graveyard of services and things that they've shut down.
Yeah.
So,
but just think
even something as silly as, I've bought into the Google Assistant and Google Home sort of thing. So I've got about 4 or 5 Google speakers, and I've got 1 Chromecast and things like that. But even seeing this, that kind of worries me because even that's been rebranded as Google Nest and stuff, and it's a very fast moving industry and company, obviously. But I just all of a sudden I feel uncomfortable buying anything Google almost because of this sort of if it doesn't work or if it doesn't make us $1 trillion within the first year, then we'll walk away from it. It doesn't promote very good sort of customer satisfaction or confidence.
Yeah, I think using that example there, Flap, the Google Home, we've got a couple here in the house. They're about £35 each, something along those lines. They're obviously luxury items, I guess, but they're not that expensive. You were paying full price for these games on the Stadia platform, 50, 60 quid for these games. Now, imagine if the service does go away and you've invested hundreds of pounds.
Some people will have done.
Exactly. And really one of the biggest, and the reason I said before that I think that within 18 months as a consumer platform won't be here is the later that they make that decision, they're likely going to have to make a decision as to how do they compensate paying customers if or when the service does go. And the longer it goes on, the bigger that compensation is likely to be. But also, consumer confidence in Stadia as a platform is likely to lead to less people using it and less people spending money on it. And if people aren't spending money on Stadia, then what's the point? Unless they totally revamp the business model behind it and maybe go to a model similar to Gamepass. But I think if they were going to do that, they would have done that by now. But yeah, like 60 quid a game if you buy 2 or 3 games, between 100 150 quid that you've spent, that you potentially could lose. And from my perspective, that's why outside the trial I was never going to invest any sort of money in that platform. At least with Xbox, with Game Pass, you're getting the games, you can download the games, you can play them offline, you don't have to subscribe. And Puck's made a fantastic point that xCloud is just one of the pillars of Microsoft's ecosystem. You can simply buy the game, you don't have to subscribe. You've got those options, and xCloud is just one of them. And that'll give people confidence to go into the Xbox ecosystem. And especially if you compare the two services outside of the technology, which I completely agree with Pucks that Google was the best of the ones that I've tried. When you just compare them side by side, it's a no-brainer. It really is a no-brainer. I can't imagine anyone's getting into gaming right now to exclusively use streaming services.
Yeah, facts.
And that's a problem that both Amazon and Google are going to have to contend with, especially as Puck quite rightly pointed out in the States, especially with the States issues with data caps. We don't have them here in the UK, or at least I'm not aware of any services actually having data caps. In the States, obviously, they're very, very common, which is just another hindrance. So
I have a data cap, so I definitely feel you on that.
Exactly. Yeah, and to be honest, when I saw that they were walking away from their first-party studios, the first thing I was thinking, oh, they're going to go into the acquisition business. They're just going to go around buying loads of studios in. So rather than taking the time and effort to create their own first-party studios, they're just going to do what Microsoft do and just open the checkbook and buy loads of things. But then thinking about it, it's like, well, which companies would actually want to be bought by Google? Who would want to be on that platform? Because, like you say, it's a very tenuous path to tread if you're a software if you're a developer. Or
so I don't think any gaming company worth their salt would be willing to give themselves up to the powers of Google, would they?
No. No, absolutely. Well, thank you. That's I like I say, I knew that was going to be kind of an interesting topic, and it was just bizarre that Phil Harrison had blamed or pointed the finger at Microsoft's acquisition of Bethesda.
Exactly.
But before we do move on, there has been a sort of a rumor. I think it came out today, actually, Scott. Apparently, there's a potential Bethesda event happening fairly soon once the acquisition is done. What did you make of that, Scott?
Yeah, I've not actually listened to the podcast. So if I remember correctly, I think it was the source of the rumor came from Jeff Grubb of GamesBeat. I think he discussed it on the most recent GamesBeat Decides podcast. And I think anyone who was sort of particularly last summer with Jeff Grubb's Summer Games Mess will know he seems to know his stuff and seems to have sources. So it's probably worth treating that rumor, as something that is likely to happen. And I think it just kind of makes sense. I think there are so many questions at the moment about Bethesda, what games they've got, not necessarily what games they've got in development, maybe more around when these games are coming out. And obviously the big question is around whether they're going to be exclusive to Xbox or not. So I think it's probably important for both Microsoft and Bethesda to get out there and sort of just put everything out on the table as soon as that acquisition is completed, and as soon as they've finalized plans. My understanding is that they sort of legally can't do certain things until the acquisition is approved. So there's likely going to be a delay between the acquisition being approved and those plans being finalized. But I think the earliest opportunity they're likely to come out and just outline what it means for Bethesda games, and more importantly, Xbox players. And I tweeted about it a little bit earlier, and I think I've been of this opinion since it was first announced. I think if this event does come on, it'll start with Phil Spencer. He'll say everything you're about to see is exclusive to Xbox and Windows. He'll then hand over to his good friend Todd Howard, and then you won't hear from Phil Spencer or anyone from Xbox. It'll be purely Bethesda from that point going forward.
Are you sure you haven't written the bloody show notes for this?
It sounds like it, doesn't it?
Well, because now you've said that, I can absolutely visualize it.
I think that's how it'll go. I mean, obviously, people are quite opinionated about the whole exclusive topic that's gone around, but that's how I see it playing out. And then there's obviously been rumors for months from now about Starfield and potentially that coming out in 2021. So it's likely that might get a big blowout at this event as well. That's how I see it going. I know a lot of people are maybe of a different opinion, but I think it'll be interesting. I think it'll be really good for Xbox and Phil Spencer in particular to get out and just tell everyone what it is, because as soon as that acquisition is approved, the questions aren't going to stop. Is this exclusive to Xbox? Is this exclusive to Xbox? Is it coming to PlayStation? Right. Those questions will never stop until they come out and address it. And I think they'll use that as an opportunity to just get out and put all the cards on the table and ensure everyone's aware of exactly what that means.
Absolutely, yeah. And to be honest, still Rain, do you think that's what's going to happen? And to be honest, Wakanda's just called it Bethesda Fest, so that's actually known from now on. Does that almost have to happen, do you think, just to allay, I wouldn't say fears, but just to allay anyone's sort of concerns around exclusivity? And like you say, is that a great platform to springboard Starfield from?
I mean, to be completely honest, yeah. I feel like an event definitely would need to happen. If that's the rumor that's going around right now, as we all have been hearing, I do definitely think something has to happen. Once you close that deal, drop an event and let people know what is going to happen, especially if you're going to make these games exclusive. I know a lot of people are like on the fence of whether making games exclusive for certain platforms is okay or not, or if this should be here or that should be there. At the end of the day, man, there wouldn't be two different platforms if there were not exclusives to play those platforms. If everything is everywhere, that makes this argument with certain pieces of plastic irrelevant. Again, it's just like different brands of clothes. It could be different teams. It could be whatever it might be. We have our favorites. And it's just important for Microsoft to officially announce that they are completely serious, right? Because I think that's what everybody is looking for. Is Microsoft serious? Phil keeps saying that he doesn't like content being taken away from players. Is Phil serious about making these games exclusive? Because personally, for me, if he does not make the games exclusive, yes, the whole conversation of that people have of what's the reason to buy an Xbox becomes extremely real. And then you really have to question the platform. Again, there's exclusives for a reason, and honestly, at this point, with Xbox giving accessibility to honestly every other platform other than maybe your so-called your favorite platform, there has to be those differences. They're still a business. They still want to make money, and they still want to drive competition. At the end of the day, that's what it's about. I think with this, it's really going to set the precedence for Microsoft for the next 3 years. Personally, I kind of have a my own ledge. I would say that I would die on is that within the next 3 years, I feel like everyone is going to you're going to be unable to say that Xbox or Game Pass is not worth it. You're not going to be able to say it. You're either going to be subscribed to it or you're going to be in the bushes, as they say.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. And to be honest, someone I think who's just said that? Pong Soul just said that, someone as huge as Bethesda, I mean, they had their own event at E3. So, are they just going to creep back into the shadows of Microsoft? And, during the Microsoft event, there's going to be oh, by the way, this is the Bethesda stuff. Or do you think they're still going to have their own event? Because, they've got so many studios. It's such a huge kind of undertaking and an acquisition. Are they still going to do their own thing, do you think?
I think they should. I think they'll still do their thing. I mean, again, Microsoft doesn't usually do they usually do the E3 thing, which they're not going to do, as we all know. They do it around June, so I could definitely see doing something during the summer. They could do something in March to really, clarify everything that's going on with the Bethesda deal, the ZeniMax deal, to let people know what's going on with that, and then do a specific conference for themselves during the summer to really hype up the summer and get everything amped up, because again, you have to start that hype cycle up again for Halo. And what's the best time to do it? During the summer, dropping a beta, or whatever they may have planned, telling your everybody that's invested, your consumers, the games that you have down the pipeline, giving more trailers out, actually giving us more gameplay, and just overall just getting that hype cycle ramp right back up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And to be honest, I don't know if you've heard today, Pucks, but apparently there's some more rumors around Microsoft perhaps acquiring Techland and with it Dying Light 2, Pucks. So, have you heard that? And apparently, if there is going to be any sort of announcement, it will be after the Bethesda.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I hadn't heard that at all. That's completely news to me, as you've just told me. Well, I guess anything's possible, right? If you want me to give my opinion on it. I mean, I don't really know what else to say, if I'm honest. If a company like Microsoft are willing to put $7.5 billion to acquire ZeniMax and Bethesda, then, well, then why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they try buying the Dying Light series or any of the other series? Exactly. Right?
You know what? The more I see of that game as well, the more I really want to play it. It looks fantastic. I'm really excited to play that. So if it does become again, as a Microsoft exclusive, because the rumors are that they've not only just potentially purchase Techland, but also the rights to Dying Light 2 as well. So will be an interesting one to see. Right, thank you everyone in the chat. We've not really done the chat at all, so yeah, thank you everyone for being here. Are we caught up with the chat just before we move on, Pucks?
Well, I've got a number of new comments if you want me to read these out.
Yeah, let's do it.
I've got one here from Carlos Damara, who says, I believe the majority of future games will be exclusive. I can't see Xbox sending $7.5 billion to not have exclusivity.
Yeah.
Pong Soul says, whether true or not, they absolutely need to do a show, and they need to answer the questions. Wakanda Xbox News Today says, rumors they will be internally discussing the working relationship and a roadmap as the approval is given. The other rumor is that as PC market is worth more than console, so exclusive to Xbox. Pong Soul also mentions here just like we talked about the other week, ZeniMax/Bethesda is too big to just try to absorb into Microsoft/Xbox. The name has power, and they need to be given a stage.
Yeah, absolutely. No, they're all valid points, and it's a very interesting time. I think within the next couple of weeks we're going to have some big topics to discuss and talk about. I think, and I'm really excited for that because traditionally sort of January, February are normally pretty quiet months, but we've never been in this situation where Microsoft are on the verge of acquiring someone as huge as ZeniMax Studios. But not only that, it may also unlock some other information that they're holding back at this moment in time, without wanting to sort of dilute the news of the Bethesda acquisition and stuff. So that's all exciting as well. Chat, thank you very much for being here, everyone. Great to see you all. Thank you. I will just do a very quick roll call. So we've got Pong Souls on the show last time we had a show. Excellent. Welcome to the chat, Wakonda. Stubbs, welcome to the chat, Myseko. Oh my goodness me. Carlos Damara. I'm just scrolling up through the list. Dragon Wolf. Guys, it's always fantastic to see you. Thank you all for being here. Anyone I haven't mentioned, thanks for being here. It's absolutely great. And I did mention that we have actually been practicing for our Halo tournament, and I did say flash on the screen the roster. So this is where we currently sit. We're obviously down in the bottom left corner, and we're going to be playing XBL Party Podcast. We're not sure what that is. I think the tournament starts on March the 6th. But as you can see there, that's the lineup. So how far we'll get, we don't know, do we, boys? We're getting some practice in. I can't help feeling that I am the ball and chain of the party, if I'm completely honest.
Oh, man, don't say
I tell you, I am really struggling moving from Call of Duty to Halo. In fact, I was going to do a little video on it, actually, because, I'm used to, on Call of Duty, being able to probably wipe out 3 enemies with 1 magazine.
Right.
If things fall, if the cards fall right, you can do that quite easily in Call of Duty. But in Halo, you're looking at an entire clip and possibly a reload and a little bit more. And all of those need to land, those shots. So I'm really struggling with that, if I'm honest. But, practice makes perfect, as they say. So, no, I'm enjoying it. I am enjoying it. I find it's frustrating as hell. But, I
think we've both had moments where we're just swearing at the screen thinking, why is this happening? This shouldn't be a thing, But it's all good fun. We still enjoy it. It's just,
exactly. No, exactly. And like you say, it's all about the fun aspect of it. And, it's really great picking up some extra skills because, they can traverse into other games and stuff. But Scott's our man. Scott and Luke are our men. I'm afraid Pax and I are just bringing up the rear.
No, you guys did really, really good the other day, considering it's the first time you've played Halo in a long time, or even at all, especially come from Call of Duty. If I give you some advice, Flap, just drop Call of Duty and play the superior game.
Well, you know what? I nearly had a good session on Call of Duty today, and I was thinking, no, I can't. I don't want to screw up my muscle memory. I can't do that. So I've got to stick with Halo for the time being. So fair point. So, yeah. Excellent. Okay, well let's move on with the second topic. And actually, before we do, obviously a bit of an elephant in the room. Obviously, our Twitter account has been unfortunately hacked, and whatever it is they did, they've obviously managed to get the account suspended, which is most frustrating, as I'm sure you can probably imagine. We put a lot of time and effort into building up the Twitter channel, and to be honest, that's the channel or the account that actually supplements our YouTube channel and how we get information out to people in our community. And obviously, we've been staffed a little bit with that, so really appreciate anyone that's sort of retweeted and shared our posts and stuff. So I'm really grateful to our fantastic community. It really blows me away every single time. So thank you to each and every one of you that's helped, spread the word for this podcast alone. And with any luck, we may get our account back, we may not. But talking about that, we have set up a dedicated Discord server. We were setting it all up today, wasn't we, Pucks?
Yes, it's all ready to go. If people want to join that, we'd very much love to have you all here.
So I will bring it up again at the end of the show, but we'll be posting a link in the description below, and obviously we'll be posting it out on social media as well. So if you want to come and meet us on the Discord channel, we will, and we also plan to do some bit more game streaming straight to Discord as well. So keep your eyes open for that.
Get in that Discord, ladies and gentlemen. For sure.
Right. Well, let's move on to the second topic then, which is the Xbox frames per second upgrade, and we kind of knew it was coming, didn't we? I mean, we'd seen some footage of Fallout 4, I believe, running with this enhancement, although it was only a video and none of us actually managed to get our hands on it. But yeah, I think this was first touted sort of mid last year when the Series X and Series S was kind of first. Some of the first feature sets were starting to come out, and they were able to up frame or frame FPS boost certain Xbox One titles. And I always thought it was an amazing thing to do. And apparently it's all done through machine learning, and they can tackle it without any developer intervention at all, which is fantastic. And this week, kind of out of the blue, we were treated to our first selection of games that actually have this feature. I think we've got Far Cry 4, which is what's playing today. And I've got it on disc, this game, so I actually installed it. And it did a 1.7 gig patch. And as part of that, I got the new frame FPS boost. And if you press the Xbox guide button during your game, in the top right corner, not only do you see auto HDR, it also now says FPS boost as well. So you know which games have got FPS boost on them as well. So that's fantastic to see. We've got Sniper Elite 4, Watch Dogs 2, EA Sports UFC 4, and new Super Lucky's Tale, which is probably the oddest one in the bunch, because not only is it up framed, it's gone all the way up to 120 frames per second as well, which is fantastic. Panel, what do we make of this? Have you guys tried any of the up framing at all? Let's go to you first, Steel Rain, if you don't mind.
Personally, for me, no, I have not. I have not been able to acquire one of those fantastic series consoles yet. But I have experienced these things on PC. So I definitely can relate to the frame boost. And it's important because it's a lot more people are going to be able to experience something that I've always kind of had the opportunity to experience. I've been in between PC gaming and console gaming since I was young. My father had got me into it, so it's always been another outlet of mine. Having the experience to being able to put that more out into the wild so that more people have access to it, so we can really see what's generation changing, the direction that we really need to move in I feel like is extremely important. And I feel like that's what Xbox is really stating with this whole frame boost model, and what they have done with back compat. Again, I believe it was the Everborn Saga. Some people might be familiar with him. He's a great guy on YouTube. I think it was him that said something similar to this, but you have to treat games like pieces of art, and you should be able to take your art with you. Especially if you're invested in it. We invest into these games. We get so involved in these worlds. And back in the day, it was kind of one of those things where we just move forward. You throw the old games away. But now, as we've seen with Nintendo, because they're just so great at just doing that, and it's become so accepted, re-release old games and give them kind of a new coat of paint, where Xbox is giving you the developers the opportunity to frame boost games, and to get them to that from 30 to 60 to 60 to 120 to really give the user a better experience overall is the next gen, I would say, title that we're moving for. That's next gen. And that's what I feel like is something that everybody has to understand. It's not about graphics. It's not about power. It's not about any of that. It's about you as the gamer becoming more involved in these worlds and more involved in what the developers are starting to create, because everything is becoming to a middle ground, or as they say, Moore's law. Everything we've reached a peak. There's only so much further we can go. Now it's just about you feeling your games,
And you do absolutely feel the difference when you're running at a higher frame rate. That's without a shadow of a doubt.
100%.
SX2, have you had a chance to try any of these?
I've not had a chance to try any myself, Flap, mainly because the games that they've put on offer so far are relatively limited, and on games that I would typically play. I've already completed New Super Lucky's Tale, and I think on the One X and the Series X, New Super Lucky's Tale is at 60 FPS. I think
Yeah.
it's only 30 FPS on the One S or the original one. So if you played it on the One X or the Series X, it's getting boosted from 60 to 120 rather than 30 to 120. But I haven't really played any of the others, mainly because they're not really games that interest me. If I'm being perfectly honest, I'm not too big on Far Cry or Sniper Elite. And Watch Dogs 2, I played the first one, but I wasn't really overly interested in that one. So it'll be more of a wait and see thing for me to see what sort of games they happen to boost in the future. I know Jason Ronald mentioned that they were testing numerous games, and hopefully that list will get bigger quite quickly. So it'll be one that I'll keep an eye out. But I think it's a pretty cool feature. I mean, 60 FPS is always better than 30, pretty much in all cases. So I'm looking forward to see what games they actually do it, and then it will probably incentivize me to go back and try maybe an older game that I haven't actually played yet, just to either check it out or to finally play a game where maybe it's suffered because of old generational hardware.
No, absolutely. And to be honest, well, before I actually come on to that point, but Il Seppo, when I was watching the Jason Ronald podcast with Major Nelson today, he said that the FPS boost on when you press the Xbox guide button would be coming to later OS system updates. Now, obviously, anyone on the Insider program, I'm guessing, possibly already has that. So if you're not on the Insider program and don't have the latest OS, then you might not see that popping up on the guide button. But that doesn't necessarily mean to say that you're not actually getting those extra frames. It's just not showing up as the FPS boost at the moment. But I think with the next OS update, you probably start to see that. Or you could always join the Xbox Insider program. I think if you just do a search on Xbox Insider program, you can sign yourself up for that, and you'll get all the latest OS updates, and you get to see stuff early. Pux, I think you've mentioned that you haven't really played Far Cry before. Does this entice you in?
FPS boost on its own isn't enough to entice me into a game that I wasn't originally too interested in. But I had started giving a go at Sniper Elite 4, but I've started trying out that game before FPS boost had been released as a patch. So even playing on a Series X, I mean, Sniper Elite 4 is an Xbox One game being played in back compat, so the frame rate is all over the place. And I've just seen a comment as well from Wakonda, Xbox News Today, in the chat, who's just said that he's tried Sniper Elite as well, and apparently the game feels a lot better just because of FPS boost. So I definitely need to jump back into that game soon. And with Super Lucky's or new Super Lucky's Tale, I mean, I've played both of those and finished all of those completely. So unfortunately, there's no real reason for me to jump back in anyway.
You did mention on Indie's show that you were playing that, didn't you?
Yeah, I was doing some achievement kind of clearing up on new Super Lucky's Tale, as well as the original Super Lucky's Tale, which came out before this one. If you want to know, I've got my 1000 G for new Super Lucky's Tale now.
Well done.
I was kind of finishing it for the original Super Lucky's Tale, but it's got some real BS achievements on there. Like one of them is you have to get like a lifetime 50,000 coins in the game or something. And I think by the time I've done all the levels in all the different worlds, I think I've only accumulated like, I don't know, 30k or something like that. So it's not worth the time, personally. So I won't be finishing that off. It's more on the easier ones. But, I've been playing some of those games recently, not with FPS boost. But, actually, I mean, one thing I would like to bring up in regards to this, as a lot of people were quite surprised about this. I mean, I wouldn't say I was surprised. It was a bit strange why it wasn't included. But when this feature was kind of teased a while back, the one title they used to show it off was, of course, Fallout 4.
It was.
Which, of course, has been a complete no-show in terms of this. And seeing as this technology is something which doesn't touch the game code at all, it's actually an interception between the graphics code being sent to the GPU. It's like an interception, like a middleman halfway from the game code to the actual hardware.
Well, I was going to get a little bit technical with you on this because apparently the game itself still thinks it's running at the original frames per second.
Yes, exactly.
So
that's what
he
was saying.
So does that mean that your input controls are also running technically at 30 frames per second, if you see what I'm saying?
In theory, yes, because if you was to try and meddle with the game code by some external source, I mean, because a lot of, especially older games, a lot of the games obviously run on a fixed tick, or they try to. So if there's a lot of AI systems in games, for example, whether it's a an off-the-shelf engine like Unreal or Unity or an in-house one, it all follows the same principle. So if you was to try to increase the frame rate on the game code side of things, you'd actually find that you could really mess up with the simulation.
Yeah.
So like AI and physics wouldn't work very well anymore in a lot of cases. So it makes sense why you wouldn't want to touch game code anyway. I mean, that's one case, but of course, to try and tweak game code is it's a direct source at that point. It's not something Microsoft can just do. You have to get permission to actually access what is actually a private IP asset. So it's very interesting the way they've done it, as you say. It's like this middleman. I mean, yeah, it uses a bit of AI to do it, but ultimately it's this middleman process in the middle between the game code pumping out its graphics information and then the Xbox actually capturing that from the GPU side of things and putting it on the screen. So I remember I did read about how it worked. I can't remember the full proper terminology and details, but yeah, effectively there's a middleman in the middle, which is almost buffering the video and doing some funky stuff with it to increase it. But as you say, the game code is running as it thinks it is. So if a game was obviously made to run at 30 FPS, the game code is running at a 30 tick rate, if that makes sense.
Well, exactly, and that was kind of my point. But it's obviously interpolating the frames on the fly, but it must be doing it incredibly quickly because there's no noticeable lag from input that I could detect, and I was looking for it because I kind of knew that the input controls were going to be running at a 30 FPS tick rate, and was trying to see in a first-person shooter whether I could actually feel that. But I've got to be honest, I couldn't. So it's actually a really good solution.
Out of interest, was you playing Far Cry through an external hard drive, or is this internal on the SSD?
Internal.
I'm wondering if this is a technology. I mean, do you know this actually? Do you have to have a game on the SSD for this to work? Because, as you say, there's a lot of data throughput that you have to process on the fly. Yeah. And obviously, if something going through a hard drive, for example, could be quite slow. Or rather, the time for the hard drive to send data to the internal Xbox system to then pump it to the screen could potentially be quite slow, depending on what your hard drive read-write speeds are, for example.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I don't know. Like I say, the game thinks it's running natively, so I'm not really sure if you're running an SSD and it's loading in assets and stuff, whether that's going to make much of a difference. But I will certainly try. It's an interesting point whether this works on an external drive. I don't remember anyone ever saying that it wouldn't, so it would just be interesting to see. But let's go around and just ask the $64 million questions, and let's start with you, Still, if we can. So, okay. What games do you want to see next with this FPS boost? What games would be a show changer for you?
Oh man, one of the games that I really want to see, and it might have been boosted with the Series X, was actually an MMO, Black Desert Online, and it might have already had an unlocked frame rate. But I'm not completely sure. Another game that I think that I would want them to bring back, man, because I have such most of the Dark Souls titles, I would definitely like for them to give them a frame boost. Just because I've thoroughly enjoyed the series. Going back through one was always a good time, and just overall, I think frame boosting that series would be a good look. What else? Honestly, I mean, there's not much else that comes to mind for me personally at the moment that I could think of that they're already not putting work into,
Yeah, no, absolutely. Scott, what would be on your list?
Yeah, I think maybe just echo something that Steele mentioned there is, a lot of the games that I'd be interested in, they've already given the 1X treatment generally in the past. That's kind of given that boost in performance. Even something like Halo Master Chief Collection recently got updated to, have a 120 FPS mode. So
exactly.
I think from my perspective, I'm not really too sure. I don't have any games that come to mind that I'm really desperate to play. I'm trying to think I've got a number of 360 games in my backlog that I want to get to. Things like Fable, Blue Dragon, Lost Odyssey, games like that I want to replay. I don't know if they're in 30 or 60. I imagine some of them are in 30. If anyone knows that would be great. So if they maybe update games that are in my backlog already on the 360 and give them the boost, then it might bump them up the list a little bit. But from my perspective, I'm not too bothered. I do hear a lot of people talking about Dark Souls, as Steele mentioned there, and Red Dead Redemption seems to be pretty high up on everyone's list as well. But from my perspective, I think it's a really cool feature, but it's not going to, I guess, make me play games that I wouldn't otherwise play. It might just, maybe the games that I do want to play, maybe make me get to them a little quicker.
Right.
No, that's a fair point. Yeah, no, exactly. And to be honest, it kind of answers the question, because I was kind of wondering how important people will see this as a feature, but perhaps people don't. Perhaps it's just I think it's perhaps on the nice to have pile, isn't it, rather than the must have, I guess.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, Pucks, what games would you like to see an FPS boost to? Anything specific?
Unfortunately, no. I kind of mirror what Mr. Rain and Essex2 have said, because most of the games I think I would like to play with FPS boost enabled are probably either older Xbox One titles or even 360 titles, which I'd return to. But again, I'm currently right into the right in next gen mode, that I'm not really. It's not really currently in my scope to want to go back to play 10-year-old titles at the moment. I'm kind of very much invested in what I'm playing, like new releases, right, and things on Gamepass and things that aren't relatively old. So no, I'm not sure. I think if anything, I'd be quite interested to see how older titles like Fallout 3 and 4 would perform. As well as obviously some of the older Elder Scrolls games, because I love those titles, yet obviously they didn't necessarily run completely smooth on the original 360 and stuff, so I'd be quite interested to see how they perform. But then
there are mods that allow you to remove the cap, aren't there, for both Skyrim and Fallout 4, I believe.
Yeah, I believe that's true for both of those. But then, I mean, that's true, but I'm thinking from the perspective of, do I have to mess about with mods? No, I don't want to do that. Can the system do it for me?
Yeah, exactly.
It'd be nice to know that there is an in-house solution in place that can try to do that. But then, again, the flip side, is that with the Series S and X anyway, I mean, the power within both of those is substantial enough that I think just from raw power alone, it's able to give you a smooth experience from the experience I've had playing some older titles. But I appreciate equally that with FPS Boost, for games which may struggle in back compat mode, it's quite nice to know that the system has got a solution in place that can give me a nice, silky, smooth 60 frame experience playing something from 10, 15 years ago,
Exactly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And to be honest, I found myself at the beginning or the tail end of actually last week wishing that a particular game was a higher frame rate, and myself, yourself, Pucks, and one of our friends, we all decided to play Payday 2. We hadn't really put any time into it. We
that's
fancied,
a good point, yeah.
Yeah, we fancied the whole heist thing and downloaded Payday 2, and it was so jarring that it was running in 30 frames a second, particularly obviously being a first-person shooter as well. So I'd love to see that in 60 frames per second. That would be fantastic. But my other big one that you've already mentioned would be Red Dead 2. I'd love to play that at 60 on the Xbox. That would be fantastic. I did post the question on Twitter, and a few people come back. Someone said Rise and Alan Wake would be their picks.
Rise would be a good one, actually.
Yeah,
think about it. Yeah,
exactly.
I played that not too long ago, and yeah, I think that would look. I mean, it's a gorgeous game to begin with, but it would look even better at 60.
I've been trying to convince Pucks to play that. It's a fantastic game, isn't it? It just gets bad press. I hate the fact that it gets the press that it does.
Yeah, I'd recommend it, Pucks, especially considering it's relatively short, maybe 6 to 8 hours as well. So it's not going to take up a massive amount of your time. But yeah, I think it's a really underrated game, and it still looks gorgeous to this day, despite being 8 years old now, I guess, at this point.
Sorry, which game is this? Sorry, I think I missed it.
Rise.
Oh, Rise. Yeah, that's on Game Pass as well, isn't it? I believe.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah.
Why have I not checked it out yet? Yeah, I remember watching the original Xbox One release trailer back at E3 in the day, and I remember seeing that as a launch title and thinking, wow, that looked really good. But no, I just haven't bothered. I haven't thought to try to play it. So no, bringing it to my attention, I'll give it a go. I'll get it downloaded.
Well, we mentioned this a few shows back, didn't we? I think the whole fact that it had Kinect integration kind of put a bad spin on it. But as a standalone game, once all of that was kind of ripped out almost, I mean, I think you could still use it technically, but it's just a fantastic game. I really enjoyed it. And like Scott said, you can just sort of sit down and play it kind of mindlessly almost. I think I played a video once on our podcast playing that.
Yeah.
So, it was cool. A couple of the others were, someone else said Rise, Sunset Overdrive. That's a great game. I really like that. And Archimedes came up with the Arkham series again.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, that's a good pick. Yeah.
That would be, yeah, for sure.
So there are games out there that would really, benefit from this. And someone else said Halo 5 at 120 frames a second. That'd be pretty cool. So yeah, I am someone that does play older games, I guess, every now and again. I tend to play the latest games, and then in my sort of downtime in between games, perhaps pick up some of the older games that I've missed out on. And Payday 2 was definitely one of them. And I really like this technology, and I hope they expand it quite as extensively like they have Auto HDR. But we'll have to see on that one.
I think it'll be one of those things, Flap, where at the moment I can't think of a game, but it'll be something like they'll release one game and then someone like Digital Foundry will come out and just say, like, this game's never played better. It's locked 60 and it'll kind of give something a bit of a boost. So I think it'll probably be something that catches me by surprise, that makes me go back, where it's a game that isn't even entering my mind at the moment. But then once it's added, it'll be like, oh, actually, I need to check this game out because I didn't play it the first time around, and now it's playing as good as it can ever play.
Exactly, and that's the strange thing with this selection of games. And Puxley, obviously, you're not that fussed about Far Cry 4, and that's absolutely fair enough. But anyone out there that kind of feels that they might have an interest in it and just genuinely missed out on it for whatever reason, there is no better time to play this game, because all of a sudden you've got Auto HDR. It's running at 60 frames a second. Now is the time to play this game if you're interested, even in the slightest. So unfortunately, it's not one of the titles that's on Game Pass. But
that was just about to ask that, actually. Yeah. So what games out that list are in Game Pass, actually?
Let me find the list. Where's my list gone? Super Lucky Tale, Sniper Elite 4 definitely is.
I don't think
Rise is on there. I mean, I know someone's mentioned Rise in the chat. You talked about that. That's on Game Pass.
Yeah, but that doesn't have an FPS boost yet.
Oh, sorry, FPS boost specific.
Yeah, no. So I think it's only Sniper Elite 4 and new Super Lucky's Tale, I believe. Yeah. Chat, let us know. I think that's. I think they're the only ones that are actually currently in Game Pass, but. It seems strange that they put games on there that weren't in Game Pass. I would have expected them all to have been in Game Pass so we could check them out. But
I think they basically said it was just these are the games that were ready. Jason Ronald talked about, I think he basically said they were testing some games and they'd maybe get to the final level, and then all of a sudden they'll encounter bugs. So I think it's just more a case of these games were the ones that just happened to have been tested fully and they didn't experience any
makes
issues.
Makes me wonder why those games, though. But like you say, perhaps they tested loads and these are the ones that just made it through the QA. But fair enough. Excellent. Are we all caught up on the chat, Pucks?
Yes, we are so far, yeah.
Fantastic. Want to welcome Indie Gamer, Seppo, Demented, Squire, Invader Gaming, all welcome to the chat. Thank you for being with us and helping us through the show. Perhaps we'll move on to topic 3 next, and we'll come to you, Scott. The new Xbox wireless headset. Interested? Is that your kind of thing?
You know what it is? I think it's cool as hell, but personally, I'm not interested because I've very recently just bought myself a pair of Arctis 7X headphones. Okay. So, if I wasn't already invested in another headset, which the missus very kindly got me for Christmas, then I'd definitely be interested. And if anything, I'm really surprised that it's taken them this long to get it out. The headset market is bloody massive at the moment, so it's a bit of a surprise it's taken them this long, but obviously it's been in development for a while. It was pretty cool to see that they had sneaked it into the Xbox Series X trailer, where the guy in the headset from some of the marketing at the beginning, one of the guys in the trailer was actually wearing the headset, and sort of no one picked up on that at the time. So I think it's pretty good, and I think the main thing that stands out for me about this headset, if I didn't already have a wireless headset, and I would definitely be going for this, is the price point. I think if you compare it to other headsets in that price range, I don't think you're going to be able to beat it. Obviously, we don't know quality, the audio quality just yet. We won't know until it's released and people can actually get their hands on it. But certainly from a feature set perspective, I don't think anything within that price range really gets close. So yeah, I think it's really cool. It seems to have been, I think it's sold out already pretty much everywhere from what I've read. It's sold out really, really quickly. So yeah, I think it's really good. And if I hadn't already bought one, then I'd definitely be picking one up, because I think it just looks really nice. First of all, just aesthetically, it's very, very nice to look at. And it's also got the I don't know if you're familiar with the Surface headphones that Microsoft released. It's got dials on each ear cup, which act as a volume and a mixer, which I just think is just a really, really nice design. One of the problems I've got with the Arctis 7Xs is the dials are just sort of little wheels on the underside of the ear cups. Every time I pick those headphones up, I change those dials one way or another without fail. And I just think that, that design's really, really nice. And so I think these are going to sell extremely, extremely well.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I have the Turtle Beach Stealth 600s,
Yeah.
and they're absolutely fine, great sounding headsets and stuff, but they are only Xbox wireless, so that, there's no Bluetooth functionality on these, which I find frustrating because if I do want to hook up my phone, or I obviously had to buy the wireless dongle from a Win 10 PC in order to use those and stuff. Bit frustrating, to be honest. So the fact that these come with Bluetooth as well, and that you can hook them up simultaneously with Bluetooth, and obviously
that's a really sweet feature.
That's fantastic, isn't it?
The dual connectivity. One of the reasons I went for the 7X actually over others is the fact that it comes with a USB dongle, essentially, that you can plug into anything. So it would work with a PlayStation, work with Switch, PC, phone. That's one of the reasons I went for that, because there were some others like the Corsair HS670 or something like that only had Xbox wireless, so you couldn't use it on any other device. You needed the Xbox wireless dongle, as you mentioned there, Flat, to use, and it was like 150 quid or something. So there's because of Microsoft's decision to go with the proprietary wireless connectivity for Xbox sort of controllers and accessories, it really does limit your options in terms of what headsets and other accessories you can actually use, to the point where these accessory manufacturers have to design specific Xbox hardware. With any sort of wireless headset, you can plug it into a PlayStation or a Switch or your PC. Xbox doesn't have that luxury, which is a little bit frustrating, if I'm being perfectly honest. I think they should really change that. But yeah, I think that's right. I think at that price point, with that feature set, particularly with the dual connectivity between Bluetooth and Xbox, I don't think anything will get close to it.
No, exactly. And like you say, the price point, the only unknown is the kind of quality, but I think Microsoft quality of first-party accessories isn't so bad. I completely agree that they were a little bit slow. We saw the PlayStation 5 accessories during the PlayStation reveal, unless I'm much mistaken. We saw the chargers, the headsets, the camera, and things like that. And obviously, bearing in mind that we'd seen the Series X the December before, probably at least 7 months before we'd seen the PS5. Like you say, I'm a little surprised it's taken this long for this to sort of come about. But still, are you in the market for those?
To be completely honest, no. Here recently, I just acquired two pairs of the Rig 800 LXs. Honestly, the best pair of wireless headphones that I've ever had. Really, the best pair of headphones I've had. So I'm not particularly in the market for some headphones, but I am thinking about getting them for my PC, because for some reason my rigs don't work that well with my PC. The sound quality cuts in and out sometimes. And I've updated drivers. I've maneuvered some things. Move some things around, and it hasn't changed, so I'm definitely considering them. I think they're a great purchase for anybody that's looking for a pair, for sure. For everything that they're doing, like you gentlemen said, just being able to simultaneously connect to not only your phone but also the game, and to not take your attention away from your experience because you're connected, I think is awesome. It's something that you most of the time have to pay top quality or top dollar for. So the fact that they're giving it to you for $100 versus $200 to $300, I think is magnificent. The 15-hour battery life that they're talking about, we know that can be subjective. Everybody plays differently. You might play with the volume all the way up, so there's always that. The rotating ear cups, like we were mentioning earlier, that's going to be a great thing, especially if it's on either side, to make it very easy to access. I know at least on my rigs, sometimes I get confused of which dial that I'm rotating, because the dials are right above one another, or they're on top of each other, basically. So unless you've had them for a bit, you get accustomed to it. But even now, it's like I reach for it and I turn down the wrong one. I'm like, oh, that's not what I was going for. But yeah, there's a lot of potential in these headsets, man. I mean, as we see, they're already sold out, so people are excited for them. They support the Windows Sonic, Dolby Atmos, and the DTS headphone necks. I mean, it's a top quality product, man. And for that price point, you can't beat it. So I definitely would suggest it to people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know what? I was really umming and ahhing because, like I said, I'm really happy with my current rig, but I don't know, just the fact that they've got a lack of Bluetooth really, really annoys me, to be honest. So I was really tempted, and I can't remember who posted it. There was still some pre-orders left at Game in the UK. I was so tempted to order them by. I managed to resist, thankfully. Yeah, Pucks, are you in the market for some new headsets? Would you consider these?
I'm not in the market, unfortunately, no. But as what SX2 was saying, I definitely agree that, given what you get for the price point, these are such a worthy investment. Looking into the chat as well, there's a number of people in our chat showing what headsets they've got, and they've got some pretty decent headsets in the chat. I'm jealous of you all, but equally, I mean, the other side of the coin is that they are expensive as hell. I mean, I personally wouldn't fork out that much for them. But I appreciate, obviously, there's a load of audiophiles out there who love to have that crystal clear and crisp audio. Yeah. So in comparison to the price points of, other third-party manufacturers to the Xbox stuff, I think it's definitely a good investment. But equally, I mean, as it's been said on the panel as well, so that I've just done some quick looking up. I mean, yes, you can use these on Xbox and PC and mobile devices with Bluetooth. It supports Bluetooth 4.2. But equally, as you say, if you're going to buy a pair of you're going to buy a pair of headphones or whatever. I mean, I for myself, I've got a wired pair. I've got some Logitech G433s. Got these in a Black Friday deal about 2 years ago. Yes, they're wired, but to be fair, they do the job for me. I'm not too fussed about having to walk away entirely from my rig or controller or whatever else, so it doesn't bother me too much. But I do think it's a very good thing they're doing. One thing I did want to bring up, actually, I think it was you, Scott, who shared this on Twitter the other day, about back in the day of the 360 10 years ago. A wireless headset was that little weird tiny Bluetooth earpiece that you used to get,
Yep. Yeah, I love that little headset. I love that little headset.
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
it's crazy, right? Yeah. Flap, you've got one already, right? You still got one from back in the day?
I don't know if I've still got it. I'll have to go digging around. I did say that I've still got my Xbox 360 wheel and pedals. If anyone in the chat knows, will these still work on the Xbox Series X, the wheel and pedals from the 360 era? I'd be intrigued to know.
See Project Gotham 3, you're going to be playing again anytime soon?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, exactly.
Taking it back.
But I find it interesting about, seeing headsets now as well, again, comparing it to what we got 10 or so years ago. It just goes to show how far gaming's come, especially I think with the advent of, and the uprising of Twitch streaming and game streaming, and to be a streamer, even as a career choice, and people actually making money off of this, having high quality gear is obviously what people want nowadays. And I just think it's so interesting to look at the contrast from 10, 15 years ago. As you say, you've got the tiny, pathetic looking earpiece to now you've got these fully fledged, full on headphones with super duper Dolby bass and all the rest of it,
Oh yeah, I mean they cost as much as the Series S, don't they? Do you know what I mean? Serious investment. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Pucks, out of interest, when was the last time you gamed without a headset on?
Oh, God.
Can anyone remember? Because I genuinely cannot remember. My first sort of headset, I got a pair of Turtle Beach. I think they were like Stealth 2s or something like that. And it must have been the beginning of the Xbox One generation. I think. But I've honestly, since I've got a headset, I've never looked back. I don't play games without them now. I'm just thinking back, Flap, I posted that and we had a little chat on Twitter about that earpiece, but obviously that was just for chat. So we still had the game audio coming out the TV, but we were speaking to people through that little headset, and I just look back and think, how on earth did that work? Were people not infuriated by the sound of my TV coming through the mic when playing shooters and things like that? It's completely different times.
I think it had quite a primitive noise cancelling on it, didn't it?
Yeah, it must have. It must have.
Yeah,
but it's just one of those things I look back and I love that little headset, but I couldn't go back to a similar setup these days. I couldn't go without a pair of headphones, or even using just speakers. I don't even use speakers these days.
I remember gaming with people probably back on it was definitely Call of Duty, probably Black Ops 1, thinking about it, in that kind of era where people were using the Kinect as their microphone. That was annoying because sometimes that would pick up the TV. Yeah, that was awful. But
just to quickly add to that, I know Scott, what you were saying is a bit of a rhetoric there, but I'll be honest, I think I must be in a bit of a minority because I don't when I'm playing on the Xbox, or if I'm playing just on my own on the PC on a single player game, I don't actually wear headphones.
Interesting.
Yeah,
So
especially on Xbox, when we're playing Halo, for example, yes, I have this same headset on, obviously with the mic attached, and I talk to you and I hear the audio that way. But no, if I'm playing a single player game, I tend to just play with, my TV setup speakers, if I'm perfectly honest. I suppose that's a good question for the chat, I guess. Chat, do you always game with your headset plugged in, or do you use your surround sound setups? Let us know.
It's interesting. Would you do that on a first-person shooter then? If we were playing COD together, would you have a headset, or would that be coming through your speakers?
Well, if we're partied up, I would naturally have the headset on to talk, so I would have I'd have it playing through the headset anyway, the audio. But if I'm playing on my own, then I'd probably still just have my TV blurting out, if I'm perfectly honest.
Oh, right. Because you're losing an important sense, particularly in first-person shooter online games. Definitely.
That's true. I mean, when I have a headset on, yes, you can definitely hear footsteps better. But I don't know. I never tend to struggle too much without it, if that makes sense. Not to say I'm any super good at these games. I'm not trying to blow my own trumpet here or anything. But
he is so good, he doesn't even hear it.
I have it on mute. What are you talking about, guys?
Well, to be honest, the wall hacks help as well, don't they?
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, of course they do, but don't tell anyone.
We're exposing them.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm kind of surprised. I thought, because people were sold out, I thought lots of people were probably going to go for this. But I think what Scott's kind of alluded to, I think perhaps if these had been available at the time of the Series X being launched, then perhaps, I don't know. I know they're hard to get hold of nowadays anyway, the headphones. But yeah, perhaps people would have, because I've certainly bought a new pair since the Series X, and perhaps, if they'd been available, I would have probably invested in those, in all honesty. So.
Yeah, it's exactly the position I was in. I was looking for a pair of wireless headphones, and had they been there, I would have gone there.
I think VJ was as well, from memory. He mentioned that he was after a decent headset as well, actually, to go with his Series X.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It just wasn't available. Obviously, the PlayStation 1 was available at launch, and I did actually do a little bit of logging into this, actually, Flat. I found it interesting. I know it's obviously based in the US, but the NPDs for January of this year came out. And I guess this is all courtesy of Matt Piscatella on Twitter. So if you're interested in this sort of thing, please give him a follow. But in January in the US, sort of the accessory market was worth $222 million just for the 1 month. And the best-selling sort of headset was the PlayStation Pulse 3D headset. Was the best-selling headset out of all the headsets that are available at the moment. That was the best-selling one. So it is a big piece of the pie that Microsoft, I guess, have been missing out on. So maybe a little late to the party, but maybe better than I guess.
Well, I was just going to say, I hope they haven't missed the boat, but the fact that they've kind of sold out kind of suggests that perhaps they haven't, I suppose. But
I think it's the price point. I really think it's that price point. Like I said,
it's a great price point.
Other ones in the market. Some of the guys have been talking about A50s, which are about $250 in the UK. I was looking at some Corsairs that were about $150, $160, and they only worked with Xbox. They didn't have Bluetooth. The 7X that I've got were $140 on sale. The 9X that comes with the Bluetooth is like £200. So that price point for that feature set is going to mean that will sell out and be a very good seller for Microsoft, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Are we caught up with the chat, Pucks?
No, I've got a few things I can read out here.
Go on in. What have we got?
One here from Pong Soul, who says the feature list is value at $99.
Yeah.
Leap of faith, hoping that MS learned from mistakes on the last headset and are creating a high quality product while undercutting the rest of the headset market. I've got some comments here about just what other people have. So Demented Squire 7 says they're holding back on this headset, though they really need to be amazing to move me away from my Astro A50s. Il Seppo says they've got the Sennheiser G500s.
Nice.
Some very good setups there. Regarding my question of do you always game with headsets or not, Demented Squire 7 says not always, sometimes TV. Multi-layer with chatting, definitely headset, and yes, I agree. Rhythm games and for immersion, I use headset and sub-pack. And Luke still says, if I'm on my own with my Series X, I have a 7.1.4 surround sound set up to blow the doors off. Otherwise, it's headset on.
No, I used to have a 7.1 and game with that, but you know what? I don't care how good your setup is. It still does not beat a pair of decent headset or headphones, to be honest. Particularly nowadays with Dolby Atmos and stuff, where you can actually start to pinpoint whether footsteps are coming from behind and all kinds, up, down, and all sorts of stuff. But you just lose something as it's traveling. It's great for films and stuff. But I never massively enjoyed gaming in 7.1. If I'm completely honest, it certainly didn't compare to a headset. But
I suppose when it comes to headsets, though, I suppose it depends on again what you have and what you can afford to have. Because I don't know about you, but I mean, I got mine in a Black Friday sale about 2 years ago for about 40 quid. But when I have this headset on for too long, this might sound a bit strange, but I feel like my ears are getting too hot. You get what I mean?
I relate to that.
That's perfectly valid, mate. Yeah, perfectly valid.
So I think that's probably a bit of that as to why I don't always like wearing them for what I know is going to be a longer playing session, unless I'm talking with people. But I can appreciate if you've got some super duper expensive, comfortable ones, then you never want to take them off.
No, exactly. I don't know if anyone else wears glasses, but when I game, I have to wear glasses. And my Turtle Beaches, they have a nice soft bit of sponge on the top of the ear cup, so you can wear glasses quite comfortably. But if it didn't have that, it'd be horrible. Excellent. Okay, that's cool. Are we done with the comments, Pucks?
That's up to date so far.
Fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, it was a bit of a surprise those coming along, and like you say, they sold out really quickly. And I'm really pleased to see the uptake with these headsets. And I just hope that the quality lives up to the price point, really, and beyond. I wonder if Microsoft might be taking a loss. I guess they wouldn't take a loss on accessories like they would a console at all. But
just quickly, actually, I've just seen a comment from Pong Soul who said, this headset could be a test for Xbox, and they may look to create an elite-level headset down the road.
It's a very solid point.
Absolutely. Yeah, and to be honest, I am expecting an Elite Series 3 controller to be announced this year.
Oh, for sure. Honest. Especially based off that new controller. The new controllers, I mean, everybody's saying nothing but great things about it.
Well, I've got the Elite 2, and it's missing the share button for a start. I think the low latency can happen in a controller patch. But it has to be patched for that to work.
I think even with that, if you guys remember, even Jason Ronald said, I think it was discussed, if I'm not mistaken, that yes, the Elite Series 2 controllers are getting an update, but even then, it's not going to be the same as with the actual series controllers. It's still not going to be as good. So.
Depending on I actually pick up the controller that came with this series, depending on the game, because if, like you say,
for sure.
If I'm playing something like Halo or COD, I've got all my setups and all the paddles on the back, brilliant. But if I'm not, then I tend to pick up the Series X controller that came with it, because I absolutely love that little thing. I think it's a fantastic controller, the best controller that's ever come, the best vanilla controller that's ever come with a console, in my personal opinion.
For sure.
Absolutely. Chat, thank you very much for being here. Let's just move on to the last topic if we can. In fact, we've probably got a couple, and we'll do them quite quickly. We'll come to you first, Steele. Did you see in the news that Sega is really happy with the results of Xbox Gamepass?
Oh yeah, I definitely saw the news on that. I think it's actually I think it's actually a great thing, because Xbox and Sega have always had a solid relationship with each other. The fact that they've finally been able to put Yakuza into the Xbox environment and doing it through Game Pass that allow just a mass audience to have the access to a title that has never been on an Xbox console. I feel like that's extremely important. And the love that it's been getting, I feel like, is also extremely important, because again, many people have said something similar to this, but if we do not show these titles love, or if people don't show that they're interested in these titles, then these studios and these people are not going to try to, or be hard pressed to bring those titles over, or try to step out of their, I guess you could say, comfort zone, especially when it comes to Game Pass. Because I mean, let's be honest, everybody's still questioning. I can imagine still the big companies are still questioning it. Oh, how is it viable? How are we doing this? Even though it's working and it's proving itself every month over month. It's proving itself. I mean, shucks, right now we're on a path of 1 million subscribers a month. That's insane. So I can only imagine how much of an excitement it brings to Sega, just to get more attention on their products. And I think it's the early signs of I think there's something happening. I mean, again, it's another one of those ledges. I really feel like there's maybe something deeper going on between Sega and Xbox. you don't just keep doing good business the way you've been doing good business. With Sega going through everything that they've been going through and not being as relevant as they used to be, and having all the IPs that they have, I think it'd be a great move for Xbox to jump into that pool. But again, it's one of those things we'll see. I'm just glad that Sega is actually getting some more love, because to be completely honest, Sega's kind of like, it's kind of one of those things that I grew up with as a kid. Sonic is willing for ever always be in kind of like an idol to me. I'm always going to hold him to that character to a regard, kind of like how exactly the same way Master Chief is for Xbox. They represent that brand in such a way where if they're used correctly, man, it can flush out the market in so many different ways.
Absolutely, and I was really pleased to see this kind of comment from Sega and stuff, because
Exactly.
I don't think we as consumers of Game Pass have any doubt that it's a fantastic value, but to see the developers, and particularly one of Sega's stature, complimenting it like they have, it's fantastic to see. And to be honest,
Exactly.
I was having a chat with Stubbs on Twitter, backwards and forwards. He was kind of saying about how great Yakuza is, and I know VJ is a huge Yakuza fan, and Stubbs was sort of going through about how it's hooked him as a story and stuff. And I've never really been privy to that story, so I've got Yakuza 0 downloaded, ready and waiting to go for when I'm looking to start a new game. To be honest, it's really exciting to see. Luke, do you think this is a pointer of something that could happen a little further down the line, or is this just Sega literally showing their gratitude?
Just to check that, were you talking to me at Puck's?
Yeah, Scott, sorry.
just wanted to check me that. Don't worry. It didn't come as much of a surprise. I don't think it means an awful lot. I think it just helps maybe answer the question as to whether Game Pass is viable for developers in the long term. If you've got a massive publisher the size of Sega coming out and saying it works for them, then I mean, I would always argue that consumers shouldn't really worry too much about it anyway. Let Microsoft worry about the money. But I think it just shows that Xbox is good for not only us as gamers and consumers, but also developers as well. And I think Sega wouldn't be putting all of the Yakuza games in the Game Pass if they weren't seeing success. I think one of the things they pointed out was 2 Point Hospital had got like 3 million players, and a large part of that was down to Game Pass. You look at EA recently talking about the number of EA Access or EA Play subscribers had basically doubled since it went into as a perk with Game Pass Ultimate. Shows that it is good for developers, not just gamers as well, and that really gives me confidence that at least the current price point is viable for at least the sort of short to mid-term at the moment. So I just really hope it means that some other Sega franchises that maybe I'm really thinking of Persona here more than anything come to Xbox in future because of the success that Sega has seen with games like particularly Yakuza on Xbox.
Do you know one of the other titles that Sega were pointing towards, with regards to the success of Game Pass? It was Yakuza, obviously the Yakuza franchise, but it was 2 Point Hospital as well. They seemed absolutely delighted that it had got the reception that it had on Game Pass. And I've got to be honest, I've not played 2 Point Hospital. My daughter played it for a little bit, and we watched a few comical YouTube videos around kind of what it's all about and stuff. But it seems strange that they've really sort of focused on the 2 Point Hospital part of it, that they're really pleased to see how well it's performing.
I think it's...
Go on.
I was just going to say, I think it's a game that a lot of people might not have checked out. I mean, I used to play Theme Hospital back in the day on my PC. That was a long time ago. I didn't play 2 Point myself. My girlfriend played it quite a lot, but it was one of those games that we wouldn't have picked up if it wasn't in Game Pass. She wouldn't have played it. So it really just goes to show how Game Pass can really open up people to new games and new genres that they wouldn't typically play, and that's only good for developers in future. It means people will be more likely to check the game out or buy it or buy DLC and obviously they're getting the cut from Microsoft for the game being in there anyway. Obviously, I don't know how those deals are structured, but they're getting a kickback from Microsoft. So yeah, it's just good to see developers and publishers, especially someone the size of Sega, just coming out and just saying how good it is for them as well. And it really just does seem a win-win for everyone at the moment.
No, absolutely. And Puxley, early on in our podcasting career, shall we call it, about 7-8 months ago, we were questioning how Game Pass was funded and what's in it for the developers, or not so much what's in it for the developers. I think at the time it was assumed a lot of indie people would, indie developers might try and capitalize on Game Pass because of the audience that it brings with it. But when you see larger publishers as well and developers come along and praise it like they have been, it's fantastic to see. Was you surprised to see Sega come out and sort of commend it like they did?
I was pleasantly surprised, yeah, because I think just before that announcement, I had read some other articles about other kind of developers and a few other publishers almost questioning if the model will work in the long term. And there was a few developer articles I read where they were stating that they wasn't sure whether or not games would have to potentially, or rather developers would maybe have to adjust how they make games to fit the Game Pass model, which I found a bit interesting. But the whole thing was written in a quite a negative light in a way, as if to say it's not good because developers have to change how they make games. Which I mean, I'm not a full-time developer or anything, so I can't necessarily comment on whether I agree or disagree on that. But it did make me wonder where that kind of thought process came from, if I'm perfectly honest. So when I did see that Sega was saying that we're seeing great sales, I thought that was really good news. And as you say, them highlighting specifically a game like 2 Point Hospital, I thought was very, very interesting. And I think also because a game like that is, I mean, if anything, it's a throwback to the old school like theme hospital titles and other theme games.
It's kind of the natural successor, yeah.
So it's quite nice, and I imagine those kind of games haven't really existed in a massive capacity in recent years, have they? They're kind of almost a relic from the late 90s and early 2000s to a degree. So it's quite nice to see that they're focusing on that, and hopefully those kind of games, well, a lot of people might have given it a miss because of the type of game that it is, and they might not have been brought up with it, and therefore don't necessarily have any nostalgic feel for it. So to have a game like that on Game Pass, as you say, where people could just jump in and play it and try it out, to then see that they've got 3 million or so downloads and active players playing it, for its lifetime, I guess, I think that's very good news, and it's a good advocate for it. But then, as Steele was saying as well, like as I've said before, a massive Nintendo fan, love Legend of Zelda and Super Mario and stuff. But my first foray into gaming was Sonic the Hedgehog on the Mega Drive, or the Genesis as it's known in the States. And I've definitely got a soft spot for Sonic the Hedgehog. So if Sega are saying all these good things about it, I'm hoping it's only a matter of time until they start bringing the Sega franchise to Game Pass, Sonic franchise to Game Pass. Sorry.
Yeah,
I would love to see that.
Yeah, like the rumors of the Microsoft acquisition of Sega are still bouncing around, and lots of people think it's not going to happen. Some people think it is. Fair enough. We don't know. Whatever. But like you say, either way, that doesn't stop Sega bringing more and more of their titles to Game Pass, and that would be fantastic. Like you say, if they could bring the Sonic franchise, how awesome would that be? Yeah, no, completely agree. Let's just do one quick last round then, if we can. Final topic, Fall Guys. Ultimate Knockout coming to Xbox finally. It's been rumored for a long time. Steele, have you played it? Do you like it?
Me personally, I don't have any interest in Fall Guys, man. There's like the party games. I kind of fell off since after Mario Party, man. I mean, if I'm looking for a party game, Mario Party is the one that I go to, or I go to Super Smash Brothers, or I jump on Mario Kart. Those are more the games that I would personally move towards. Even though Fall Guys is available on PC, because they're charging $20 for it, I am not willing to even pay $20 to try it. It's one of those things. I know it was free, I believe, on PlayStation, and I know there's a lot of people who have been enjoying it, and it had a lot of hype. But I believe I had a conversation earlier in the week about it. Fall Guys has seemed to kind of fall behind. Needless to say, their player base has kind of died off a bit. So I feel like it coming into Game Pass is going to give it some more. Is going to revitalize it, give it another boost, give it more attention than it had before. Again, I'm always for those kind of style party games to be cross-platform. I feel like it should be. I mean, you want that attention, you want to garner that the popularity of the people, but you also have to understand they're fighting against Among Us. Even though it is a different style of game, it's still getting everyone's attention, and mainly because it's on everything. And to be honest, even on PC, people are willing to pay $5 to even just try it out. I did, and again, Among Us, I didn't personally wouldn't just jump on it, but it was a decent time. You know what I mean? $5 versus like $20 to try out a game, or even free with Game Pass. It's one of those things, man. But I think it's a great thing. I think they'll see another boost in their population for the game, and we'll see if they can continuously deliver content for the game and keep it alive.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Scott, is this a game that you've played before?
I've not played it. I'm actually on the opposite side of the fence still. I'm actually really, really excited to finally see this game come to Xbox.
Yeah.
It's a game that I saw obviously blow up on Twitch in particular for PC and PlayStation, that I really felt like I was missing out on something happening, like something really big. My laptop isn't good enough to play games on. I don't have a PlayStation, so I felt like I missed out. It was actually interesting when it first got announced. It was announced for Switch during the recent Nintendo Direct, and there was no announcement for Xbox at the time. And I just thought, oh, well, it mustn't be coming to Xbox for one reason or another. I thought maybe it just missed bought. And then it was the following day they announced it. And I tweeted about it at the time, and I said I kind of expressed my excitement for it coming out. And I got a few replies basically saying, why, it's a dead game. And I was like, oh, what? Since when? Well, I think that maybe just adds to what Steele mentioned there, where maybe the player base has suffered a little bit. But really, that style of game, that party game, family friendly party game is kind of missing from Xbox at the moment. It's something that they don't really have. All the games that you mentioned there, really, Steele, were sort of on the Switch. So for Xbox owners who don't have a Switch, they don't have that luxury. So I think it's a great game for Xbox to have, and hopefully it does revitalize the player base if it has suffered a little bit recently as well. It's probably worth mentioning that it isn't coming to Xbox Game Pass, so you will have to pay for it on Xbox as well. But I think $20 or pounds or whatever it'll be, I think seems reasonable. The developers seem to have supported it really, really well. I think they're up to season 3 now or something like that. So I'm really excited to play it with friends. And I know the group that I typically play with, pretty much everyone in my group is excited to finally be able to check it out. They've seen it on Twitch and they've seen it sort of blow up, and they really want to just have a bit of a laugh, rather than maybe something more serious like Call of Duty or Halo or something. They just want to have a bit of a laugh with friends, and I think that is something that is really missing on Xbox. So really looking forward to that coming out. I wish it was a bit sooner than summer. Summer just feels so far away. It's kind of one of those games that I felt they should have announced and it should have come out the next week or even the same day or something like that. But yeah, whenever it comes, I'm going to be checking out, and I'll definitely be picking up day one.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And there's a couple of points around this. First off, Pucks and I have played it. We've put a video. We've got a video on our channel that's where we both play it actually. And Pucks, well, I won't spoil the video. Watch the video. It's one of our earlier videos actually. But yeah, Pucks and I play it, and we get to. Well, I get knocked out early, so that's hardly a surprise. But no, we get to see how well Pucks does. So definitely check it out. I mean, if you're new to it and you want to check it out, that's fine. But you know what? I've always thought this should be a free-to-play game. I'm perplexed as to why it's not a free-to-play game, because it is a game that has lots of sort of skins and an in-game currency and stuff where they could actually make their money that way. And this would be the perfect game for Game Pass. And I am absolutely astounded that it's not coming to Game Pass, to be honest. Probably because the developer would get some money out of it anyway. But like you've alluded to, if it is a slightly dying game, then to get it onto Game Pass and essentially, again, free in inverted commas, people feel more inclined to actually spend some more money on skins and upgrades and things like that. So
really good point.
It's a really strange maneuver by the developers themselves, I would suggest. I'm sure Microsoft have tried their damnedest to get the developers to concede to get it onto Game Pass, but they're obviously holding their grounds, and that's fair enough. And it's one of those sort of seasonal games that where they can sort of bring out new assault courses and all kinds of stuff. Pucks, what's your take on all of this? Do you think it should be free to play?
I was actually going to comment on that. I'm glad you said. I think it would do well if it was. However, I can understand why it's not, because Mediatonic, I think, are only about a 300-strong studio anyway, which is a lot of people, but they're not the biggest studio when you compare it to the big leagues, so to speak, quote unquote. And I can only imagine that maybe the reason it's not free to play is because I don't think they have many kind of big games under their belt. So maybe as a studio, maybe they can't afford to throw it out as a free-to-play, because unless they know that it was going to get the return back on, in-game purchases, then maybe it wasn't worth it, or maybe it wasn't worth the risk.
But we know that works as a model. I know Fortnite is probably a different league, but we know that can work as a model, don't we?
It works, yes, it works as a model, but only as long as the game is popular and people are playing it and buying stuff,
But surely one thing that makes the game less popular is not so many people paying for it and buying it. Do you see what I mean? It's a bit of a catch-22, isn't it?
Okay, so I think one of the problems of Fall Guys when it first came out, and the reason why a lot of people say it's a dead game, is just because there wasn't as many mini games as I think a lot of people would have liked. So the variety kind of dwindled quite quickly. So I think if it was a free-to-play at launch with that limited selection of mini games to play, I think a lot of people would have very quickly jumped off of it as soon as as much as they jumped on. Sorry, as quick as they jumped on. Whereas I guess if you're asking for players to pay for the title to play it, you can then, as a developer, you're guaranteed that income or that revenue. You've got that share of players that have invested into the game, and you're hoping that they'll then stay around. Obviously, as time's gone on, they've now started the whole seasons thing, and they've got people playing, and they are slowly getting more mini games out there. But I'm wondering if the limited capacity of the studio, just from the employee count, is maybe a restriction as to why they can't get content out as quick, perhaps. But the other side of the coin is that they do a lot of partnerships with Twitch, like Prime Gaming or Twitch Gaming, whatever it's called now. So you, as long as you've got Twitch Prime, you can claim your free, Fall Guys skin or a set of skins, whatever it is, and you can kind of get involved that way. So I think they're engaging the player base in that regard as well. But I agree that in time, maybe it could turn into a free-to-play. Because, look at something like Rocket League, for example. For the first 4 or 5 years of its life, it was a paid-for title.
Yeah, that's true.
And it wasn't the biggest game either. It's only because over time, people got invested in it. They saw it on Twitch or they saw it played. You jump into the game, you really like it. And eventually, once you've got a dedicated hardcore player base that are willing to invest their time in the game no matter what else is available, then I think it would be a good time for them to potentially go free-to-play and hopefully then expand their player base further.
But this is why I think getting it into Game Pass would actually be brilliant for everyone, because not only do the developers actually still get some money per download or click or whatever, but people with Game Pass feel like it is free. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. I know
it feels like a win-win.
I suppose is it maybe a negative of Game Pass then when you say, because I agree with that feeling that you've almost feel like you got it for free, but then to some degree you then, because of that mindset, you're not dedicating all your time to playing it, rather than paying for a game and then playing it and going, oh, I've paid for this, I'm going to give it a bit more time. And then you start to really like it. But then if you've got this massive library, which you say, I've done it, I'm guilty of it, I do it all the time. But I love trying out all these different games. But because I'm trying out so many on the trot at any one time, I can only dedicate my time to so many. So there are some potentially really good games I'm not putting my time to because there's this other one I found which I just preferred more,
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic point. And like you say, perhaps that is one of the downsides of Game Pass, is that you can be a little bit less sort of dedicated to a certain game. And like you say, if you are a small game that needs to make money on the back of sort of in-game purchases, then yeah, perhaps you are less entitled to or inclined to do that. It's a good point.
But I do agree that in time it would be nice to see a game like Fall Guys come to Game Pass. I think obviously a lot of people will then jump on the bandwagon more at that point. And as Rain said, Among Us is only like $3.50 or $5, whatever it is, as we say. In comparison, Fall Guys is, I don't know, 15, 20 quid. So I can definitely see why people would maybe not jump into something with a slightly higher price tag. But then the other question I had with regards to Fall Guys, and that I hope it does have, is crossplay. Because I think, like I say, we have it on PC. If anything, I thought about this, and I'd quite like to try it out on Switch, actually. Because I really enjoyed seeing that, and both my partner and I, when we saw the Nintendo Direct and saw the Fall Guys announcement, we both kind of said immediately and shouted out that this is definitely made for Switch. It's that kind of party, cartoony vibe.
Yeah.
But then, I guess for the people that got it for free on PlayStation and those that are playing it on PC, I can't see many people potentially double dipping on a different platform. And if people are basing their opinion on whether or not they buy the game on the fact that it is a quote-unquote dead game or not, then I'd like to think that by having crossplay, you then make sure that all your player base are still playing with people that are into the game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like it's a highly missed opportunity. The fact that crossplay wasn't enabled from the beginning, because I mean, it's one of those things. Why not put everybody together? If you're worried about cheating, make sure that you have that side of it covered. I mean, as we see, people on PC they cheat into it. I mean, you can't prevent everything, but at least put it out there more so you have more eyes on it, and then it could be a turnoff when you only have so many people that you can play with, instead of just opening the faucet per se.
Yeah, no, I agree, and it's an interesting strategy, and I'm sure the devs know what they're doing. But yeah, like you say, perhaps one day it will be free to play, or because I just feel that it expands the player base massively at that point.
That's right.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
Well, excellent. We've got all the Fall Guys coming to Game Pass, but they're not coming to Game Pass things. So maybe it's all a massive ruse, and actually it is coming to Game Pass after all. It's just going to be announced in August or something.
Well, I was going to say there's plenty of time between now and it landing in the summer for things to change, I guess. But the devs do seem quite keen on making sure that the right message is put out there. And the message at the moment is that it's not coming to Game Pass. But yeah, interesting. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. I've really enjoyed today's show. Covered quite a few topics and stuff, and yeah, it's nice to chew the fat and go over quite a few different sort of topics and stuff. And we're still waiting for the major bombshell that Microsoft, I'm hoping, are going to land in a couple of weeks. I think the fact that the Bethesda acquisition has finally gone through would be quite a good one. And like I say, I think that might unlock the door for some other information to start sort of flowing out, perhaps. But yeah, that's been fantastic. Thank you, chat. It's been absolutely great to have you guys interacting with us as well, because like I say, you guys bring a different aspect, and we love bouncing off of each other. Still Rain, thank you for being with us on the second show. We'll have to get you back again.
For sure. Always. Oh, it's always a good time on the GP with the GPG crew, man. Again, Flap, Huxley, anytime, man. Even SX2, he might as well be a regular at this point. But man, anytime you guys need me, just call on me. If I'm available, I have no problem with being on. I love hanging out with you guys. I love the energy you guys bring. Again, coming from a different angle, not always being mundane and hitting the topics exactly how everybody else would hit them. And just overall, just giving it to the people in such a way that could be understood, and you can just feel the energy, and that's what it's about for me. The vibe, the energy, the feel, just putting that soul back into gaming, man. But yeah, man, it was a great time tonight, boys. Again, I want to thank y'all for allowing the rain to be in the GPG kingdom this fine Sunday. And other than that, gentlemen, it's Steel Rain, everywhere. The T's a 7. YouTube, Twitter, Xbox, whatever you prefer. Type that in. You should be able to find me. Other than that, my DMs is open. Just come talk to me, hey man. And other than that, keep it live, raw, and uncut. And gentlemen, it was a good one.
No, well, thank you very much for bringing the energy that you inevitably always do. It's always great to have that.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Scott, again, regular to the show. Thank you for being here, my friend. We're gonna tie up this week and try and get a little bit more Halo practice under our belt, and I am going to try and stream it as well if I can. So keep an eye out for that and see how well, stroke badly we and stroke I do. But yeah, no, thank you for being here, my friend.
No, thank you very much for having us again. It's got to the point now where I think I've actually lost count. This is maybe 5, 6, or 7, something on those lines. So I really appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to come on. So yeah, thank you very much again. And obviously Steel Rain, fantastic to have you on. Honestly, anytime I come after Steel Rain, I always feel like I can't bring that same enthusiasm.
You good at that. You get it.
Great to have him on. But yeah, great shows always, Flaps. And yeah, Sim, obviously Pucks as well. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Well, both of you expect your next invites in the post imminently.
For sure.
Pucks,
Not a problem.
Let's talk about our Discord channel.
Yes, also on our previous show, was it 2 weeks ago now? There was a number of you in the chat that mentioned that you'd like links to a Discord channel which didn't exist at the time. So Flap and I have been working on putting one together, and we've now finally put together a community Discord page. So if you would like to join us on our new Green Pass Gaming Discord, we will have a link to that in our description below once this video is over. You should be, if all goes well, you should be able to click on that and then accept the kind of automated invite, and then by all means, please help us make it grow. We're pretty new to Discord ourselves, so we kind of want to build and grow this with you guys. So yeah, if you guys want to interact with us or with each other over there, then by all means, please join.
No, absolutely fantastic. And like I say, with the invites, there will be a link to any invite in the description on the YouTube video, and we'll be posting it out on Twitter as well. Fantastic. Love to see you there. And we're going to start streaming some stuff there as well. And I don't know if we can multi-stream. Perhaps someone who with better knowledge than I knows whether you're able to sort of simultaneously stream to both Discord and YouTube at the same time. But let us know on that front. Guys, thank you. Chat, thank you very much for being with us. Stubbscast is actually interviewing Rand Althor 19.
Ooh.
And that's going to be a fantastic one. He is someone I follow very regularly, obviously one half of the Xbox 2 podcast. I encourage us all to jump over to that, retune our radios, as it were, and jump over to the Stubbscast program just to tune into that. It's going to be fantastic. Guys, everyone, thank you for being here. We love doing this. We'll be back next week with more topics to discuss. Hopefully there's more news that's going to happen in the meantime. And we'll see you on the next one.